Thank you so much, Monika, for meeting with me. I'm so excited to talk about our journey together with NCCASA and INS Group. We started out, I think we began working in 2017, and one of the first services that we provided was board training, and then I think we moved into some strategic fund development planning, and then provided some training for your member organizations. But what was that experience like, and what was the value add that we brought to the table?
Thank you for interviewing me, but also thank you for all the services that you've provided to NCCASA. As an executive director with an organization that I still consider pretty small, you all are a value add for multiple ways in which we've worked with you. But initially, for me, really training our board, I think, was the most valuable start for me as an executive director with a brand new board, and having a third party who both understands nonprofits, worked at a nonprofit, and more importantly, you made it very relational. And so the value add is I didn't have to look far after the first time we started working together, because I truly personally believe that you don't just do the work, but you're invested in the organization while you're working with them.
Absolutely. So thinking about just the fundraising and sustainability piece, especially with member organizations, and I know really throughout the years we have provided training for members. Why is that so critical and critical now, as it was several years ago?
Absolutely. I mean, so our organizations are, they're our members. So we do mostly the statewide training and policy working, but they're all individual nonprofits across the state of North Carolina. And boards change, but funding also ebbs and flows. And so the funding, sustainability, and training for our membership programs is equally important. We also have a lot of churn at our program. So new directors come on board, and fundraising in any climate, but especially now, is difficult to sustain their services. These are nonprofits who rely on philanthropy, individual donors, and government grants. And so you were able to help them build out and understand why a plan is a good idea, and then how you actually implement that plan. And that's a value add to our local programs, because it's not something that they could afford to do as a single organization. And so it's been helpful working with you that we can actually work with you to ensure they get the same access to information.
Awesome. And we continue to support member organizations, on an individual basis, because the importance of diversifying their funding base, I mean, that's critical, and also not having that dependence on government grants. But I think it's really focusing on capacity, what we can do, what's kind of the low-hanging fruit, but brings the biggest return. And I really think it's important to meet organizations where they are, because what we have found in working with your member organizations, they are all in different places as well. So one thing that we were thrilled to do is provide project management services for your media campaigns. And we did that 2 years. And we know that I'm interested in your sharing, like, how that came about. I remember the deadline and timeline for implementation of that campaign, or those campaigns, was critical. So tell us a little bit about how that project came about, and also share how important it was to implement a comprehensive media campaign.
We, again, are very fortunate that we had a federal funds come into the state that the state needed to expend quickly. So again, fortunate, because that means they trust our organization, and they knew that we could expedite a project this large in capacity and also funding level. But also, it was clear to me that it was a short time frame. There's no way we could contract a staff person or part-time. And again, as I said, generally, when there's something we need, I know I can always reach out to you and say, is this a project INS Group can take on? And it was a large project in scope. We have 100 counties, roughly 68 individual nonprofits who serve sexual assault survivors in those counties. There are different sizes, different budgets, different access points, and our goal was to purchase media across the entire state. So I think we really were pushing the envelope on, can you project manage? Can you help us?
Right.
The second iteration of that was, can you also help us buy the media?
Mm-hmm.
And recognizing, which thank you and your team for the great work. Some of the communities, because you did the work on a personal level, said, we don't want radio. That doesn't work in our community. We still need a newspaper. And so I think that's an important facet that you have brought to every project with us, is making it individualized and very personal for the need for the individual organization at the time that they're in.
And we really appreciate that opportunity as a team. We learned so much about media buys and partnering with other. You had a couple of other media partners that
Mm-hmm.
you've worked with before, but we really enjoyed like the tailored approach and meeting with each member who was interested in being a
Mm-hmm.
part of that campaign and really taking a look at, where they are, in a rural community where there might have been limited publications or and even targeting their resources to certain populations.
Mm-hmm.
So we were thrilled to be able to provide such comprehensive services, and it was a learning opportunity for us as well. So,
Same. I learned a lot.
yeah. So, our partnership continues today
Mm-hmm.
because we're providing language translation services, which we absolutely love. And so we have a wonderful translator, Eulalia, who has been instrumental in providing translation, Spanish
Mm-hmm.
translation. But throughout the last couple of years, we also provided translation for other languages as well. So, but why is that important, especially when you think about the, proper culturally sensitive translation services?
Mm-hmm.
That's important, especially because of the mission that you have. So, talk a little bit more about that. And
Yeah. So, I mean, we're, of course, a mission driven organization. Our job is really to work to end sexual violence through doing both intervention and prevention. And so we intervene on behalf once a survivor has already experienced a sexual assault or sexual trauma. And then we also do the prevention work. And so we've been fortunate to have you work with both of those types of work in our translation. In order for us to both prevent or intervene, we need to be able to adequately communicate with the survivor who's standing at the door or on the phone to our local programs. Again, when I started this work 20 plus years ago, we were using what I would say is the proper Spanish,
mm-hmm.
which we quickly realized wasn't appropriate for most communities in North Carolina.
Mm-hmm.
So I did our due diligence. We actually met with the consulates that are in North Carolina and said, where do your populations live? Because it's important to us that we're speaking the language, especially because the word sex and sexual is in assault do not translate very easily into Spanish. So we needed to make sure when communicating with someone from Mexico or Honduras or Chile, those are three very different countries, and the way that they communicate that is very different.
Mm-hmm.
And so all of our language needs to meet survivors where they are, and
Right.
because it's important that they know that while we may not individually speak Spanish or speak their dialect of Spanish, that serving them or working with their community is equally as important.
Definitely. And we're so grateful to have the opportunity not only to provide translation services for NCCASA, but we also have had the opportunity to work with your member
Mm-hmm.
organizations through your organization as well. Just translating materials, content for conferences, website
Mm-hmm.
content as well. So that's been very exciting for us.
I'm glad
So,
we have 68, so.
so we really have enjoyed working with NCCASA over, many years now. So, are there any specific stories that illustrate significant learning or just something that you can share, guidance that you can share with other nonprofits as a result of our partnership?
Absolutely. So one is, if you have a thought, just check with you because you might be able to meet the need. The media was a long stretch. I really felt like a long stretch, but you were absolutely on board and willing to work and accommodate and also learn alongside of us of doing a
Definitely.
project of that size. And I think, again, the relational approach that you and your team take is invaluable. And that's also the feedback that we got from our members, which is why I think that they also have extended working with you, because we do such personally important work to us as individuals who do this work.
Right.
Each of us come to this work because we want to be here. This is
Mhm.
not easy work, and it is far more beneficial to us when we can work with people who, one, respect our mission and acknowledge that we're doing difficult work, but also be in it with us.
Right.
And again, I'll use the example of our Western program. They felt like you were in it with them on the media buys. I mean, that was the biggest feedback I got was, we're so surprised that they asked us questions about what would work in our community. Most people come do things to communities without actually engaging the community. And I would tell anybody that's the most beneficial part of working with you and your team is you make it very personal. Now, there are lots of surveys to make sure that you are meeting the need intended for each group. But again, I think that that's just a benefit of you doing your homework. And every project that we've had has been successful. And that's just not from me. It's from the members who are on the receiving end of those services. And they have been more than grateful for our partnership with you because of the outcomes it means in community. So I think it's fair to say for any nonprofit, I think I've asked you multiple times, do you want to be on our board now?
Right.
Because I say that because your commitment to our work seems ever present to us. And that's what we want to know when you do. And all nonprofits mostly are mission driven, and their leadership wants to know consultants are also aligned with their mission. And that's what I would say I found with you and your team is your alignment with our mission is probably, I would say, the number one thing that I would say to any nonprofit is you can get a consultant. There's lists of them, but alignment with who you are and how you want the people on the receiving end of your services to feel is my number one priority.
And that's really important to us. I really appreciate your sharing that. And we're all about building relationships. And so we also understood, especially as we were launching the media campaign, just the availability of executive directors. You know, there are things in the community, there are urgent matters that need to be taken care of. So there might have been a meeting that's canceled or a survey that wasn't completed, and it's not because they're not committed to the process. So we were really in tune with the great work that these organizations are doing in the community, but glad to provide that type of support. So I'm really looking forward to our continued partnership and collaboration. Monika, it's been, truly a joy to work with you. I congratulate you for just, the leadership and the commitment that you've had to such a mission that is so critical here in North Carolina. So thank you, and we look forward to a continued partnership.
Thank you, and so do I. There's more work to come, so I look forward to it.
Thanks, Monika.